Hello and welcome to Skyline, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Driti back with another set of stories for you. Now today's Skyline is about stories that can affect Indians. It can affect Americans, Canadians and the rest of the globe. All these 9 segments are something worth listening. In the first segment, what if I told you that in America today, missing just one immigration court hearing, it could cost you everything that you have worked for. Not because you have committed a crime, not because you have crossed the border illegally, but because one notice never reached you or one hearing slipped through the cracks. Sounds extreme, but it is becoming a harsh reality for hundreds of Indians in the United States today. According to the newly released US Immigration Court data, 801 Indians, they were issued removal order in June 2026 alone. That number may be slightly lower than May's figure, but the bigger story is that America's immigration courts, they are now moving faster than ever before. For the very first time in the US history, more than 1 lakh immigration cases were completed in a single month. And in most of those cases, the final decision wasn't relief, it was deportation. Now, here's the part that makes this story even more worrying for you. Most of the people think that deportation only happens after somebody is arrested or caught crossing the border illegally. No, not anymore. Today, many deportation orders are coming directly from immigration court. The Department of Homeland Security files the case, a judge hears it, and if the individual does not appear, the court can issue a removal order. You know, what's even more alarming is that a large number of these removal orders were issued because people simply did not show up for their meeting, which is wrong. Some had changed their address, but they never updated it. Some never received the notice. Others assumed that they would get another opportunity to appear before the court, but they didn't. In the meantime, immigration experts say that the US court are now conducting massive calendar hearings where dozens of cases are heard together to reduce the backlog. The system is moving at an unprecedented speed, which means even a small mistake can now have life-changing consequences. So if you are living in the US on an H-1B, F-1, L-1 or any other temporary visa, don't ignore any communication from immigration authorities. Keep your address updated, track every court hearing very carefully, and if you receive any legal document, consult an immigration lawyer immediately. Because today, missing just one hearing, it could mean losing years of hard work and watching your American dream come to an end abruptly. But yes, not everybody lands in trouble because of a missed hearing. Some people knowingly try to outsmart the immigration system. And you know, this next case proves that no fraud stays hidden forever. We are going to talk about a robbery, a terrified shopkeeper, CCTV footage, police report, and at first glance, it looked like another crime story in America. But investigators later uncovered something unbelievable. Well, the robbery wasn't carried out to steal money. According to federal prosecutors, it was allegedly staged to help people obtain the US visas. Yes, very sadly, an entire crime scene was allegedly created not for cash but for immigration benefit. One of the person convicted in this case was an Indian, Matul Patel, a Gujarati, who has now been sentenced and ordered to deport from the United States. According to investigators, the operation revolved around the U visa, basically a special visa meant for genuine victims of serious crimes who cooperate with law enforcement agencies during investigation. The visa exists to protect people who have actually suffered because of violent offenses. But prosecutors allege that a criminal network decided to exploit the system just for what? Immigration benefit. Fake armed robberies, they were allegedly staged inside the store. People were reportedly paid to act as victims. Store owners were allegedly compensated for allowing their shops to be used. Police complaints were filed, evidence was created, and everything was carefully planned to make the incident look genuine. The entire operation eventually began to unravel when investigators compared police records, CCTV footage, immigration application. As different agencies started sharing the information, there was some inconsistency that emerged. leading authorities to expose what they describe as a large immigration fraud network. The message from the US government is clear here. Immigration fraud is no longer investigated in isolation. Today, police reports, visa application, immigration records, and other government databases can be all cross-checked. And if the facts don't match, the consequences could be severe. Criminal charges, deportation, and in many cases, permanent immigration consequences that can affect future travel and visa application. And yes, for genuine applicants, this case, it serves as an important reminder. Ladies and gentlemen, every time immigration fraud increases, scrutiny also increases. And that means honest applicants often end up facing stricter verification, longer processing time, and more detailed background check. Now, from immigration fraud, let's move to something far less talked about, but it is equally dangerous. Our next story is not about breaking the law, it is about not knowing the law and the lack of awareness that could cost you or your entire family millions of dollars. Let's talk about $60 rule that could cost your family millions. Thousands of Indians invest in American companies like Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Amazon, believing that they are building a secured future for their family. But very few people know that the US rule, it can change their entire gameplay, and it can leave their loved ones dealing with unexpected taxes and long delays before accessing those investments. For many American citizens, estate tax exemptions are extremely generous. But for non-resident investors, the rule is different. If somebody falls under the category that is covered by these rules and owns the US-based assets above a certain limit, those assets may become subject to the US estate tax. The threshold many people talk about is just $60,000 for certain non-resident holding. Above that amount, the potential tax liability can increase significantly depending on the total value of the estate. And this is where many investors, they got confused. A common belief is that because India and the US have tax agreements, their family will automatically be protected. But that is not how the particular rule works. The agreements most people refer to, it is about income tax. They do not automatically eliminate the US estate tax obligation. As a result, many family members discover later on, but the time is already gone. And yes, there is another challenge that many people don't anticipate. Even after the investments are inherited, access to those assets may not happen immediately. In fact, in certain situations, legal documentation must be completed before financial institutions can release the investment to the family. That means loved ones could face significant delays at a time when they may need the financial support the most. Ladies and gentlemen, here financial planners say that this is why estate planning is just as important as investment planning. Building wealth is one challenge, protecting that wealth for the next generation is another. So, if you own significant investment in the US, understand the rules that apply to your asset. Well, just know how your investment are structured and seek professional tax advice instead of assuming your family is automatically protected. Because sometimes the biggest financial risks aren't hidden in the stock market. They are hidden in the fine print of the law. And yes, let's talk about the US job market tonight. For years, the tech industry sold one dream to millions of professionals around the globe. Study hard, learn to code, get into big tech firm, and your future is secured. Today, that promise is beginning to look very different because while some of the world's biggest tech companies are reporting massive investment, they are also eliminating thousands of jobs. At first glance, it does not make any sense. If companies are spending more money, then why are they asking the employees to leave? Well, the answer lies where that money is going. Tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta, they're expected to spend about combined $725 billion in 2026. That's a staggering increase as compared to last year. But instead of spending that money on hiring more employees, much of its part, it is being directed towards AI infrastructure. Massive data center, advanced AI chips, powerful servers, and next generation computing system. This is no longer just a race to build better software. It's a race to build the infrastructure that powers artificial intelligence. And yes, while companies are investing heavily in AI, many traditional roles are becoming vulnerable. Middle management is shrinking, routine software development is increasing, that is being supported by AI tools. Teams are being smaller, and companies are looking for ways to operate with fewer people. That's one of the reasons why tech sectors have already witnessed over 140,000 layoffs in the first half of 2026. Now, speaking of Indians, then Indians who are working in the US, this story carries another layer of concern. Losing a job doesn't just about losing a salary here. For many, it is also about losing their legal status. Once employment ends, they have limited period of time to find another sponsoring employer or take the necessary legal step to maintain their immigration status. And that's becoming increasingly difficult because hiring itself in the US, it has slowed down. Experts say that it's a reminder that tech industry is changing rapidly. Skills that were in high demand just a few years ago may not guarantee job security today. Professionals are now being encouraged to move towards AI infrastructure, cybersecurity, cloud system, and other specialized fields where demand continues to grow. Ladies and gentlemen, the message is simple here. Artificial intelligence is not just changing tech today, it is changing career. And for thousands of Indian professionals in America, adapting, it is no longer a choice for you. It is becoming a necessity. But keeping your job isn't the only challenge. Even if your company asks you to return to the office, say yes immediately, or it could create an unexpected legal problem for you. And specifically if you are on an H-1B visa. That's right, let's hop on to our next story tonight. Over the past few years, remote work completely changed the way people live. Many professionals left expensive cities like San Francisco, Seattle, and New York. They moved to states where rent was lower, homes were bigger, and life was more affordable. But now companies are calling employees back. That's right. For many workers, it sounds like nothing more than another return to office policy. But for some H-1B visa holders, it could become something much, much bigger. Ladies and gentlemen, according to immigration rules, your approved work location matters. If your H-1B petition was approved for one location and you begin working from another location that falls outside the approved area, your employer may first need to complete additional immigration paperwork before you physically move there. This isn't simply an office policy anymore. It's an immigration compliance issue. Well, many employers assume that if their managers ask them to report to another office, they can simply book a flight and start working there following Monday. But let me remind you here, immigration experts say that that's not always the case. Before relocating, employers may need to file an amended petition and complete a new labor condition application depending on the circumstances. Well, failing to complete these requirements, it can create complication during future immigration processes, including visa extension or maybe green card application. And yes, there's another reality many professionals are now facing. Returning to major tech hubs, it also means returning to higher cost of living. Rent increases, daily expenses go up. In fact, state taxes may be higher, and in many situations, salaries remain exactly the same. So, employees aren't just dealing with legal questions here, they're also dealing with financial pressure. In the meantime, experts advise professionals to verify their approved visa location, speak with their company's immigration team before relocating, and ensure that every required document has been filed before making the move. Because let's be honest, today, changing your office address, it may involve much more than changing your daily commute. Now, let's leave the office behind and step into the property market, because if you are an NRI who's selling property in the US, there is one tax rule that could hold you back. That's right, selling a house is usually seen as a happy moment. You find a buyer, you complete the paperwork, the deal is closed, and naturally you expect the money to arrive in your bank account. But for many NRIs selling property in the US, that's not always how it happens. That's easy. Because before they receive the full amount, a significant portion of the sale proceeds, it may already be withheld. The reason is the US law known as FIRPTA, the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. Under this particular rule, when certain non-residents sell property in the US, the buyer or the closing agent may be required to withhold part of the sale amount and send it directly to the US government. Here's the important point. The withholding is generally based on the sale price, not necessarily on the actual profit. So that means even if somebody made only a small gain, or in some situations even sold at a loss, the withholding requirement may still apply until the final tax liability is determined. Well, for many sellers, this comes as a complete surprise. Imagine selling a property expecting immediate access to your money, but only to discover that a substantial amount has been withheld. And yes, that's not the end of the story. Some US states have their own withholding requirements, which means additional amount may also be deducted depending on where the property is located. But wait, the good news is that there are legal procedures available in certain cases that may help reduce the withholding if the actual tax liability is expected to be lower. But those steps usually need to be planned before or during the sale process, not after the transaction that has already closed. Here, financial experts say that this is why NRIs planning to sell the US property should coordinate with tax professionals well in advance. Understanding the rules before signing the final documents can make a significant difference to cash flow and avoid any unnecessary delays. Well, lesson here, very simple. Selling a property isn't just real estate transaction. For NRIs, it's also a tax event. And understanding the law before you sell, it could save you both time and money. For most people, falling property prices are bad news. When headlines talk about commercial real estate struggling, empty office buildings, and rising loan defaults, the natural reaction is simple: stay away from the market. But yes, that's not what some of the world's biggest investors are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, while many people are waiting on the sidelines, private investors, family offices, and large investment funds are quietly putting billions of dollars into commercial real estate. Reason? Very simple. They don't see a crisis. They see an opportunity. Across the United States, commercial property owners are under pressure. Huge loans taken during low interest rate era are now becoming due. But refinancing those loans have become much more expensive for them. At the very same time, office vacancies remain high in many major cities and property value has dropped sharply. For some owners, holding on is becoming impossible. And when distressed properties begin entering the market, investors with available cash suddenly have the opportunity to buy valuable assets at prices that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. And that's why experts say that market is witnessing a silent transfer of wealth. The people with liquidity are buying while others, they are being forced to sell. But this isn't a market anyone should jump in blindly. Distressed properties often come with hidden challenges. Existing tenants may leave, building may require expensive repairs, loans may have complicated legal conditions attached to them. Buying at a lower price does not automatically mean that it is a good investment. For the NRIs, there is another layer to consider here. Investing across borders also means dealing with taxation, reporting requirement, and financial regulations in more than one country. A profitable investment on paper can quickly become complicated if those rules are ignored. Financial experts here say that opportunities like these reward preparation, not emotion. Understanding the number, evaluating the risk, and planning the tax implication are just as important as finding the right property. Message is clear. Every market downturn creates winners and losers. The difference here usually is not luck, it is preparation. But yes, while some people are worried about where to invest their money, others are facing much more urgent question: how to protect their legal status after losing their job. And this next story exposes one of the biggest misconceptions surrounding H-1B layoffs. Losing a job is stressful enough. but thousands of H-1B professionals in the US. For them, losing a job, it can also create confusion about immigration rules. Many employees receive a severance package after they are laid off. The company continues paying their salary for several weeks or maybe months. Naturally, many people assume that as long as the salary keeps on coming into their account, their visa status remains safe. Unfortunately, that's not always how immigration law actually works. According to the US immigration rules, what matters is not when your salary stops. What matters is when your actual employment ends. And that distinction, it may sound small, but it can have a lot of consequences. Many professionals believe that 60-day grace period begins after the severance payment end. Immigration experts say that that's a dangerous misunderstanding. In many situations, the countdown begins from the employee's last active working day, not from a date of the final paycheck. If someone waits until the severance period ends before beginning a job search, they may discover that much of their legal grace period has already passed, and that can make finding a new sponsoring employer much more difficult. Experts advise employees not to rely on assumptions. Instead, they should confirm their official last working day with their employer, understand how it affects their immigration status, and begin planning immediately if they lose their job. Some professionals may also explore other legal immigration options, by the way, depending on their individual circumstances. But those decisions need to be made within the required timeline. The takeaway is simple here, ladies and gentlemen. A severance package may require financial breathing room, but it does not automatically provide additional immigration time to you. Understand the difference here. It could make all the difference for you. And yes, our final story takes us from the United States to Canada, because another major shift is quietly changing the way many NRIs think about investing overseas. For years, Canada was seen as one of the most attractive destinations for property investment. Low interest rate, rising property prices, and strong demand encouraged many NRIs to buy homes and invest in properties, believing that they would continue appreciating for years. But today, that picture is beginning to change. Higher mortgage rate, rising ownership cost, and slower property market are forcing many investors to reassess their strategy. Well, for some landlords, rental income is no longer enough to comfortably cover higher loan repayment and increasing expenses. As a result, many investors are asking an important question tonight: is it still worth holding these properties or not? Is it time to move that capital elsewhere? Here, financial experts say that many NRIs are now exploring opportunities back in India. India's growing commercial centers, expanding infrastructure, and increasing demand for premium real estate have made the country an attractive option for investors looking for long-term growth. But experts also question against making emotional decisions. Moving money across countries involves tax planning, currency consideration, regulatory compliance, and careful financial planning. Simply selling one property and buying another without understanding these factors can create unnecessary complications for you. Whether somebody chooses to stay invested in Canada or diversify into India, the most important decision isn't about geography. It is about planning, because successful investing, it has never been about following the headlines. It is about understanding the numbers before making that particular move. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's edition of Skyline. Ladies and gentlemen, the rules are definitely changing. Whether you are living abroad, planning to move overseas, working on an H-1B visa, or investing across the border, staying informed is no longer optional. It is essential for you, because in today's world, one missed update can become an expensive mistake. Thank you for joining me. I'm Driti. You have been watching Skyline. Stay informed, stay aware, and I will see you again with another edition of Skyline. Until then, take care and goodbye.